Hey folks, it's me, TheTacticalBrit, and the meta in Warzone is really shaping up and changing in a really healthy way. We're seeing more diversity in gunplay than ever before in Warzone, and that's something that can only be accredited to really solid development and community feedback by Raven Software. Now, with that being said, there are lots of new weapons in the field that are worth trying again because of some of the attachment changes and because of the way the overall meta has sort of shifted. It feels as though these weapons now have a place in the game, both in terms of weapons that have been nerfed, both in terms of weapons that have been increased, but mostly in terms of the attachment changes that make so many more weapons viable. In the background, you're going to see some gameplay of me using the LC10 and XM4 and a couple of other weapons here and there, and all of these feature on the list today so you can see what it is exactly that make these weapons special. So to start with, let's look at the close range. What has really improved in the close range meta that now is a massively viable option? Now, I'd say pre-existing viable options are basically the MAC-10. I think the MAC-10 is definitely one of the most versatile SMGs in the game, has a really high damage output, and if somebody pushes you close with that thing, you'll rinse them. Same with the PPSH, the continual buff to the guns seemed to kind of bring it into a good place. I don't think the PPSH is definitely a dominant weapon just yet, but it's definitely up there in terms of that category. The biggest entries into this category are the AK-47 Cold War Edition. I personally also think the XM4 and the LC10 have really come into their own in this category. Now, when we're talking close range, we're talking up until around 50 to 60 meters. And I guess in Warzone, if you're running sniper support, you want something that's sort of close to medium range. If you're running sort of AR, long range AR support, you want something that's really close range, like a MAC-10 for example. Now, nothing has really changed with the XM4, but there's something about the time to kill and certain attachments on it that make it a really powerful weapon. In this build today, we're using a agency suppressor, we're also using the task force barrel, we're using the reflex sight, which is the microflex LED sight, a 60 round mag, and we're also using the field agent foregrip. You can also swap out to use the regular close range suppressor, which has mobility benefits to really increase the close range performance of this gun, or even go iron sight, but personally I think the microflex LED does a really incredible job of making the XM4 far more accurate and having much less visual recoil. And the XM4 sits in and around the 500 millisecond time to kill range, which makes it not only really devastating at close range, but it's a gun that does work up until around 60-70 meters I find. So a huge win for this one, definitely try out the XM4. Same story with the LC10. The LC10 is one of the fastest bullet velocity SMGs, and although it doesn't pack the most punch in the world, the ability to hit targets up until around 50-60 meters makes it really appealing. It's got little to no recoil and it's deadly accurate, and if you use a regular suppressor, you can even bring up the mobility even more. This isn't exactly a hipfire SMG though, so you will have to be accurate with your shots. And finally, the Cold War AK. Stripping down the Cold War AK and using a regular suppressor, including the mobility, a Spetsnaz speed grip, using a zero stock setup, a 45 round mag, and then either a GRU elastic wrap or maybe choosing something in the laser department makes this thing an absolute machine at close range. There is a recoil kick and flinch definitely can hurt this weapon, but it's got incredibly clean iron sights, it's got a crazy time to kill when you rinse people, and is really one of the most damaging weapons in the game. This is definitely something I'd run as a sniper support though. Don't expect this weapon to back up a long range AR because you will just burn through ammo. When we look at the medium range, things change here as well. The new optics in the 3x and 4x have less visual recoil, and less visual recoil means far more opportunities in this category for all of the Cold War weapons. Now, the Krig definitely stands out as a good medium range AR. It definitely doesn't pack the most punch though, so you do have to be careful with this format. Medium range ARs can very easily be taken out by long range snipers, and medium range ARs really need to be punishing in terms of accuracy. If you miss a couple of shots, the time to kill is going to be very, very high. So you've got that really great option of the medium range Krig with a 3x optic. You also, of course, in the medium range segment here, you want maximum bullet velocity across the board. So you want the most accurate barrels that don't increase horizontal or vertical recoil, so you probably want to avoid the task force barrels here. But if you go for a barrel that maximizes bullet velocity as much as it can without penalizing anything else, you're going to be in a really good space. The best option I've seen so far is actually the medium range AK, the Cold War edition. I never thought I'd say that. And here you want full recoil stability as well as bullet velocity. The Cold War AK has not the best bullet velocity in the world. So if you maximize the bullet velocity with one of the barrels, again, you don't want a recoil penalty on those barrels, and then you bring in the agency suppressor to get extra bullet velocity, and you go for a full recoil control speed grip, or agency foregrip, so to speak, you're going to be in a really good place if you slap on a 3x optic. I don't have the most gameplay of this at the moment because I'm still testing it out, but early signs on have been incredibly promising. Really, really good, and I think the Cold War AK, if the AMAX continues to be nerfed, will take the AMAX's place. Now, I really wish I had some good news in the LMG department, especially for Cold War weapons with 3 or 4x optics, but sadly I just don't. I think most of them are just not as good as the PKM, and I think the PKM is really becoming a dominant force in Warzone. If you haven't tried it, check out one of my most recent videos, it's insane. The problem with these LMGs is that there's still too much horizontal recoil side to side. Yes, they have more mobility than the Modern Warfare weapons, but they're about half as accurate. Modern Warfare weapons don't really have horizontal recoil, and because of that, they're just drastically more accurate than all of their Cold War counterparts. The Stoner, of course, is a great option for people who want to try and get insane bullet velocity, but even then, I still think the PKM best here. So in the medium range department, I'm really not seeing many shifts here. I think the Cold War AK is definitely the largest entry into the fray. It's a skillful based weapon that can be very punishing, of course, if you can't counteract the recoil it has, but if you manage to nail that down, you're honestly off to the races with a really fast time to kill weapon that has a minimal damage drop off over the entire ranges. And finally, when we're talking long range, let's talk about the snipers. Of course, you have the SPR, which has insane bullet velocity and is relatively quick, and also has a 5-round magazine. You've got the Kar98, which is arguably the quickest of the bunch at the moment. And then we have the Swiss and the ZRG. Now, the ZRG technically has the fastest bullet velocity up until 500 meters. So there's basically minimal to no lead time on the shot, and that's becoming widely popular in the game right now. It's definitely a more bulky sniper rifle, but I think a lot of people appreciate what it can offer in terms of bullet velocity, so definitely something worth checking out. As for the Swiss, some people are labeling it a sort of fast Kar98 alternative, and I entirely agree with that description. The Swiss is definitely in a weird space in terms of what it offers in terms of speed, bullet velocity, the kind of in-betweens going on there, but ultimately it can be a really snappy and quick marksman rifle at close ranges, and something that's definitely worth trekking out and trying. Personally, I think if you're somebody who likes to nail shots over distances, the ZRG will be a home for you. If you're somebody who likes the Kar98, give the Swiss a go. And always, of course, you can fall back to the SPR to be one of the most reliable marksman rifles in the game, and just being a real machine, really, in terms of headshots and bullet velocity. So that's about it for the meta shakeup. There are a couple of weapon entries there that I think are really going to make a difference. The new machine pistol, don't even bother, trust me, it's a waste of time. But I really think you guys should give these guns a go in the new meta of Warzone. And if you enjoyed this video today, leave a like and leave a sub. And of course, you can see me live on Facebook Gaming every single day, fb.gg/TacticalBrit, Monday to Saturday, 11 AM to 4 PM. As always, folks, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.